Hey friends, Tony with MusicGuyOnline.com here with your 3-minute mix fix tip of the week. Today we're talking about the order of mixing. So when you start with a new mix, it can be kind of overwhelming to know where do you start. Do you start at the beginning of the mix, at a chorus? Where do you start? I like to start at the busiest point in the mix. That is when the most things are happening, the most tracks are playing at once. The idea being that when it's the loudest and there's just everything going on, if you can get clarity there, you can work backwards, and then everything else is easier to do in relation to that. So the verses will be easier, less cluttered choruses will be easier. Whereas if you start with like a verse or a chorus and you move forward and you get to that busiest point, then you're finding tracks you didn't have before, and you're saying to yourself, well, where do I put these now that I thought I had everything where I wanted it in the chorus? So start with the busiest point. This is the same song I was working on last week, if you saw my gain staging video. So the busiest point here is bar 151. It's kind of a post-chorus, and you can hear a little bit of it here. The time will come, we'll be erased. Nothing to keep. I want to say most of the tracks are playing at this point of the mix. So if I can get a nice crisp sound here, then like I said, everything's going to be easier moving forward. So where do we start in terms of tracks? I like to start with the bass drum and whatever is representing the bass sound. So that could be a bass guitar, that could be a synthesizer, whatever's there. Start with those two, solo them out if you want, the two of them. Get a nice parity between the two of them and set them high in the mix. Again, keeping gain staging in mind, we don't want them clipping, but they're going to be above most of the other tracks. Next, we want to bring in the vocals. Virtually any genre of music is going to place an emphasis on the vocals. You want to put those front and center. Country, hip-hop, certainly pop music, rock music. Unless you're aesthetically trying to bury those vocals in favor of something else, you want those vocals front and center. So it's the big three. It's the bass drum, it's the bass, and it's the vocals, which create kind of the bedrock of any good mix. So if you start with those and get those where you want them, everything's going to sound that much better moving forward. And one more thing I want to mention is that, some people are going to tell you that you need to, when you start mixing, bring all these levels down to negative infinity. I don't find the need to do that. I like to just, in keeping with the tips of the gain staging video, make sure none of these tracks are clipping or coming close to clipping, and then go from there. And then, once everything is certainly not clipping, then we can start with the bass, the kick drum, and the vocals, and make sure those are highest above everything else. And you're kind of saving yourself time by doing it this way, by just integrating gain staging as you begin mixing with this first busiest point in the song. So start there, filter in the gain staging, keep that in mind. Make sure the vocals and the bass and the drum are kind of sitting on top of everything else, and you can filter everything else in around them. The levels will be probably a little bit quieter in relation to those big three, and that's not a hard and fast rule, but you can tweak as necessary. But whenever I start a mix, that is the order I go about doing it, and it's just the fastest way, as far as I'm concerned, for a healthy workflow. So give that a try, and thank you for watching. This is Tony with MusicGuyOnline.com, and I'll see you next time.